Awesome. If we all can grab a seat, we will most definitely be respectful of your all's time. It is the Thursday evening, if I'm correct. I get my days blurred, but we're here. So we'll have hopefully others come in. We can fill them in as they do wander in. But this is an evening where, you know, to me, I'm excited to be at this junction. My name is Jamie Grayson, Executive Director, Founder of POAC Succeed. I'll allow my team to introduce themselves as well.
Yeah, Alexandria Rodriguez, I go by Lexi. I'm the president of POAC Succeed. Marissa Grayson, I'm our program facilitator.
And the beauty of this being here tonight is we've been working with the Kearney School District for now 3 years. And you know, and now to be working with the community, because I'm a firm believer it takes community, schools, and everything in between to create and move things forward for what you want it to be. We have a slide deck that we're going to run through. We have the survey that we pushed out to your all's community. I do want to thank for, you know, those who took part in the survey. You know, we're going to kind of just strip off the band-aids, and then we're going to really get into some insightful conversations. We're going to help facilitate those conversations, but I do want to also just thank the mayor for reaching out to me, heck, last summer, maybe it was sometime that timeline, and just saying, hey, what can we do to collaborate to be a part of a solution? And so, Lexi, you want to go ahead?
Yeah.
So this is POAC Succeed. For many who may know, who don't know, we're a nonprofit. We're out of Kansas City, Missouri. Our organization, our mission is basically to build diverse communities grounded in understanding, acceptance, inclusion, and a future free from biases. That's an overarching thing. It's just like, we want to solve world hunger. Will we ever solve it? World hunger? Probably not. But if we can always show up every single day to try it, we at least done our part. As a community partner, you know, who aims to work to create a safe space where one can share, learn, grow through conversation. That's what we're here to do tonight. You know, we wanted to have a platform, not only for students, for when we work with schools, but for adults as community leaders and members throughout, a safe space where you can actually talk about solutions that matter. This is your community. This is not ours. We don't live in the community. We're just a value add to help identify things that you can maybe grow from, learn from. I always say sometimes when it's not your reality, you don't see things the same as others, and that's fine. But I think we also talk about encouraging, be respectful as others do share, because, you know, we ask our students all the time, who's all having a good school year? Raise your hand. Not all hands go up. When we work with communities, who's having a good time in their community? Not all hands go up either. So we're going to dive in a little bit and just really try to get to, you know, basically a solution for what's best for the community of Kearney and those who are in it. This is important. Who are we not? You know, in our sessions, we talk about the dangers of labels with the students that we work with. The gal at the front desk, she's a graduate of a POAC. So when she saw us walk in, I was proud to hear her say, I went through your leadership. So she still has her shirt in her closet, she said, right? So it made us really proud to see one of the students of this community still excited about what she learned. But who we're not basically a political affiliation. I know politics. I hate politics. I'll just be honest. I don't like it because it does create divide, and we all know some of the reasons why. You know, we're not here to persuade your thoughts or opinions, but here just to help facilitate just thoughtful conversations with the residents here that are here tonight from Kearney. So I say that because I want you to hear from my mouth to your ears. You know, many things of why we created this organization is because we don't run from, we run to. You know, a lot of situations that kind of bubble up to the top, people kind of just have to take a step back. You know, welcome. Those who come in like right now, they said they're supposed to bring pizza. I mean, it's still, what's that word mean, Liberty?
I don't know.
What's it called, the place, right?
Oh, Pomodoro.
Pomodoro, Liberty. But I just wanted to get it out there just so that, you know, we have no agenda. We're just here trying to be a value add to those who we work with, whether it be students, community leaders, businesses, or just one-on-one conversations. So, Marissa, you want to kind of walk through the roadmap of what we're going to do over the 4 sessions that we meet?
Absolutely. So as Jamie said, we're going to have 4 different sessions. Tonight will be session 1. Today we're just going to dive into the survey questions and review some of those answers that were given, only for the first, I think, 2 questions, 2 or 3 questions. And then we're just going to have some small group conversation and activity. If you're not at a table with other people, please move to one now so it can kind of go ahead and start getting conversation started, because after this, we're going to dive right into the survey questions. But throughout the other 3 sessions, what we're going to work on is a small group pitch. So you don't have to sit with the same people every time, but on that 4th session, kind of the 3rd flowing into the 4th, what we're going to do is we're going to have you all work on a group project. It's a quick little group project on what you want to see for your community based on the answers of the questions and kind of the different flow and the things that we talked about in the other 3 sessions. So,
And before you go further, now, I grew up in Plattsburgh. So if anyone know where Plattsburgh is, it's not too far from here. You drove through there, did you win? Because you know what I mean? You miss something. But you know, Kearney's a community of about 10,000 people, right?
Yeah.
And if you look in this room, we don't have 10,000 people. So understand that the work we're going to work through, it's not going to be a one and done thing. It's going to take time to address things, to understand things, but more importantly, walk away collectively on how we can make things better. Because it only takes one domino to fall for change to occur. And I look at each and every one of you all in here as dominoes. You all are change agents. You showed up and you're going to leave change tonight just on our first time being together. So I just wanted to put that out there is that as we get ready to dive into our next slide here, there's a lot of people who are not here. But I also understand that there's going to be a lot of people who have questions, feedbacks, concerns, things that are also aren't here. So if you want, you know, I'll use my corporate, when I was in corporate as an executive, I told my teams that reported to me is that I don't have a problem if you have a situation that arises, but come to my office with a solution, right? People could come and make problems and be upset about everything without a solution. If you got a solution, and that's what we're gonna get to tonight for night 1, that's where change really starts to really make a difference. So, all right, continue.
Thanks. As we flow through the day, this is front and back. There's some on each table, as you can see. The front page is the part that has the ways the city or myself can improve in regards to this session. So as we flow through the different sessions, just take a minute and fill this out as you have thoughts that arise or ideas that arise. It is, like I said, front and back, but this is for you to kind of build off of for your community. So every session, we're going to have a different paper just so that you can put your thoughts and ideas on there, but really try and focus on what this session brings and your thoughts and ideas for this one. So that's for the next session, we can build on it. Don't try and think too far in advance, otherwise we're not going to get to solutions for today.
Correct.
So. All right.
All right, I'll let Ms. Lexi Rodriguez take this.
Yeah, question 1. So what the results tell us. So we're gonna dive in. So the first question was, are you a Kearney resident? Obviously 98% said they were. If you clicked no, it promptly booted you out of the survey. So if you were a Kearney resident, you didn't get to elect to answer the question.
How many responses? How many responses?
173. So how would you rate the experience of new residents who moved to this community? So a scale of 1 being not good, 5 being excellent. Obviously, there was a lot of neutral. So out of these 4 or 5 scale, we pulled some comments because if you took the survey, we asked and then we asked why. So out of those, we took some highlighting questions from each column. So from column 1, you know, for number 1, it says, you know, no loyalty, no spirit, no tradition. I'll let you take some time to read that to yourselves. You know, number 2, a lot of people treat new residents like they shouldn't be there. Looks in public or comments on the community Facebook page that's gotten ridiculous. These are straight from what people have said. So I'll give you guys a couple minutes to read this, and then we'll move on to the next one.
And after you read it, if you have some thoughts of your own experiences of your own, you can share it with them, but.
But my son-in-law is African American.
Okay.
And he was approached at Quick Trip. Wanted to know what he was doing here. And was he selling any drugs that day?
Was this recently?
It was when he first moved here a couple years ago.
Couple years ago?
And you know, he's a college educated kid. And that was his introduction to Kearney.
That would be a number one experience for your son-in-law, unfortunately.
Any other thoughts? Want anyone? And again, this is your time.
Yeah.
You know, we can run through this PowerPoint so quick, but it really means nothing. This is your time. We understand, because this is what we've created. There's gonna be some things that are said, emotions that are kind of shaken a little bit just because of someone's experience, but our ultimate goal is to work together collectively to share these things. And you can have time in your small group tables too, and jot notes down, and that's what we'll bring it forward to. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we'll go on to the next, the three, we have some longer ones, you know, this is our neutral, which I still find interesting that some of these neutral comments still have ones that I feel like don't really belong here, but this we pulled from the survey for people who answered neutral experience. You know, obviously that first one, our community can be snobbish, standoffish, racist. All the way to the last one of Kearney as a whole can be an extremely kind and supportive community. However, there is also a percentage that seems to prioritize keeping Kearney the way it was and they're resistant to change of any sort. Unfortunately, this mindset can extend not only to preserving the charming small town feel, but also to resistance to accepting outsiders or positive changes in the community. So I'll give you a minute also to read the other ones. Obviously, these range from positive to negative for the neutral comments.
The third bullet point, we had many, I'm gonna call them Kearney community Facebook groups. I don't follow any of them that constantly send screenshots and pronounce of some of the things that are on those pages, and it's extremely disheartening to disappointing. I'm always in fear that, you know, anybody's looking to possibly move to Kearney, right? I mean, what do people do to research those these days? They hop on social media, they hop on Google, and when those are the things that people find, and it's a lot of different things that go on those pages. It's, like I say, extremely disheartening and disappointing for me, and truly set a horrible example for the children in the community.
I think unfortunately, when it comes to social media, what you tend to find is the people that tend to be the most negative have the longest presence on social media. Because a lot of, I mean, I'm a positive person, but I'm not going out and touting, hey, my kid is great. I don't do that, right? Because I know where I live, and I know I'm having a good experience, but I'm not out touting it, right? But the people who are really good at wanting to spread negativity and just not great things are so vocal about it. And we know that doesn't represent Kearney as a whole. Unfortunately, those voices tend to be really loud. But we have
the majority, but they are loud.
yeah, there's not majority, it's their loud voices, and how do we get majority of your voices to be louder, right? That this is not what Kearney represents.
You know, I keep tying it back to your students because they are the future leaders of your community. They're gonna have businesses, they're gonna buy homes, all those things. And to what Lexi just said is that you all should be also proud. There's a lot of young leaders coming through your all's high school, middle school, junior high. They are actually a small percentage who want to get it right. But sometimes it takes a small percentage to get this ball rolling to get it right. But also there's a percentage that hasn't maybe lacking the courage to want to speak up as well. No different than the adults throughout the community, because they don't want, it's not my problem, right? You know, eventually, if it's your son-in-law, it becomes your problem. And it can become your problem, they say attend your church, and that can become your problem. So where at, in that point, do we find that courage to kind of step forward and just address the situation has to be addressed? So.
Can I share something? Okay, so, yes, my daughter is a sophomore, and what she comes home and tells me happens at school. I mean, honestly, it's incredibly disheartening. And what she hears, and I've even had a meeting with the superintendent and the vice superintendents about it, and you know, they said, well, we're doing all this that we can, but and we have all these policies, but it doesn't seem to be getting enforced from the, and I'm not blaming teachers or principals, I know they all work their rears off, but it doesn't seem to be getting enforced. I say, well, what, you know, are you sure the teacher is hearing these words? And she's like, it's so loud, you can't not hear these words. And she's like, it is in between like the bell, but we're in the classroom, you know, and people are just told, oh, let's change the subject. It's not really dealt with. And I understand that because we are all stretched super thin, and I know there's times that I can definitely improve. And so that is kind of why I have really gotten involved in this, because you know, I don't the things I've heard. Yeah. And she says it's not, mom, it's not once a week, it's every day. You know, and I'm just like, oh, this is not the Kearney I experience, and so that's why I don't know. I just
And I'm glad you, and I appreciate you being vulnerable, sharing the way you did, because this is part of the notes that we asked that you jot down.
okay.
Because at the tail end of this journey, let's just call it a journey, we're gonna create, actually, you're all gonna create kind of an action plan as to what's the next best step. You know, when it comes to school, I can tell you right now, I'll just say, if my son was a student that was creating these issues in the classroom, and I've always said, here's what's gonna take for change: zero tolerance policy.
Right.
Because guess what? If I get the letter, your son's kicked out of school, now you gotta find another school because of what he has said or done. Now the adults are in, like, all right, what's going on? Because now you gotta find out maybe a different school. So I think if you really want change, and you can define what zero tolerance means for yourself, your community, your school. Because is it one strike? We call it detentions, 8 hours when I was growing up, they call it AC violations or something now, but I think it's going to have some type of impact like that for a student to realize, like, they're really serious. But I think the teachers, the leaders of the school district has to enforce.
I agree. That's
And many of us were included in the school district's initial Department of Justice process. I was a table leader. And that's when I really, I'm a straight white male that's never experienced some levels of hate and stuff I heard from kids that day. And that's when I realized that, hey, it's more than a school district. And it's sort of an issue of how it's like, this is a community issue. And it's going to take education and examples like this to make a change.
You know, and I want you all to maybe jot this phrase down. I say it all the time, but it's like, what do you want success to look like? We can go through this exercise, we can go through this 4-step process, we can go through surveys, but what does success look like on the other side of all of this? And maybe it's an individual thing for yourself, maybe it is a communal thing for all, but think about that as we go through the next 4 sessions. And after you leave tonight and go home, is, well, what do I want success? What does success look like by us taking time to do this? Just think about that as we go. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, these are more on the positive side of what's in your community. We also obviously wanted to highlight those things that people feel like are going well in your community. So if you give you a moment to read those. You know, and as we as POAC read through all these comments and we shifted through them, the sentiment that I got the most from this for new residents are, and your example as a primate is microaggressions, right? So I think a lot of your community here doesn't understand what microaggressions are and how that plays in everyone's day's life and how that affects people, because some people don't experience microaggressions and other people, like your son-in-law, experience them on a daily basis and they're not fun to deal with, right? So, you know, taking time to educate everyone what are types of microaggressions and what they look like.
Before I dive in, I do want to ask, does anybody have any thoughts or comments about the range of responses from the poor experiences to the positive? Does anybody have any comments that they want to share? Any thoughts that they're kind of flowing through that they want to share with the group before we dive in? Go ahead.
I'm curious as to if y'all worked with other communities in a similar manner.
I have in my past years.
I'm curious if the that first chart you showed with 0 to 5, what the different. I'm curious if the percentages were kind of normal, like what you experienced before. Did they?
It's hard because we had such a small percentage,
Yeah.
you know, only 173, you know, that's not a lot for a community of 2,000, right?
Right.
So you're getting such a small percentage and you're only getting a fraction of people's stories really told. So it's really hard, you know, I would have liked to see more like 2,000-3,000, that would have given a better, more accurate number. But we take what we can get, right? So
It's a starting point, you
it's a
know,
starting
and
point.
to your question, Adam, too, I mean, every community is different. Yeah, every community has different challenges, different successes. So if, you know, and I think even in our initial meetings, the question was asked, well, if we can get maybe 35%, 45% to complete the survey, we can have a good sample size to really dive into and start doing some work. Before we go through, and if there's any other questions before, we want to also keep this education informative. Part of our job as POAC is to share things that we see and deal with daily. However, you know, when it's not your reality, it's just not your reality. So when we talk about terms like microaggressions, we're going to talk a little bit about the types, what it looks and feels like. Maybe you all are actually experiencing it and don't even realize it's what it's called. So go ahead, Morris.
So as you all can see up at the top, we have micro assaults. So conscious and intentional actions or slurs. Sometimes in our sessions with the students, we like to call those the labels that we put on the people. Sometimes they're kind of invisible, you know, we call people nerds, we call them an outsider, that they don't fit in, but people hear those, right? Those are those comments that it's talking about, and slurs and whatever it may be. Micro invalidation, communication, often unconscious, that subtly excludes, negates or nullifies the thoughts, feelings, or reality of a marginalized group. So, and what was your name again?
I'm Meredith.
Meredith, that would be the same as what your son-in-law experienced. I would also say that this is, Mary Kate, what your daughter's experiencing, you know, those kind of nullifies where it says, oh, it's loud, but we heard it, but the bell's ringing, we just gotta get going or change the subject. No, they experience something and you're taking that reality away from them. And then micro insults, a verbal and nonverbal communication, often unconscious, that subtly conveys rudeness and sensitivity, excuse me, and demean a person's identity. A lot of the time you'll see this in your LGBTQ community, and again, nullifying that reality of what they're experiencing and what they're going through, because it's a micro insult. Go ahead.
I have definitely experienced that here in Kearney. My wife and I have been together for over 20 years. And we just this past year sold our home and we're looking for a rental before we found, or after we found the rental we have, which we were very blessed with. But we found another one which didn't have stairs, and to make a long story short, we were looking for something like that. So we decided we'd go check it out. And this person in Kearney blatantly told us that he would never rent to someone such as us. And we're older and we were both standing there just dumbfounded. And I I said, screw you, and walked off. And, you know, you can keep your room. But we've been here since the eighties. We are old time Kearney people. And to be treated like that simply because of who we were, was probably, it was the first time we'd ever had it happen to our face like that. There's only one other time we've been called a derogatory name, and it was not in Kearney. So we've been teachers. So it happens, and it happens here in Kearney too.
You know, was there any other thoughts real quick?
I think the key thing here, is this doesn't just happen here in Kearney, right? This happens everywhere.
Right,
I sold my home in Kansas City, and I remember a neighbor wanted to come see all the updates I did, and I was like, yeah, and my old home was in Raytown, right? And I was like, yeah, absolutely, come look at my home. I was really proud of all the work we did. My husband and I DIY'd everything. And this lady, Caucasian lady, came through and she's like, well, do you know who bought your home? Like, I mean, I don't know. I checked my doorbell ringer, but I didn't look. She's like, I hope they're not Black. And I was like, you can leave my home now, because that's, my husband is from Argentina. We are welcome to everybody and anybody, and I won't accept those words. But that's where it comes to, like, when you have those experiences, when we talk about these microaggressions, and we'll get into this, it's like, when you see it happening, you have to have the courage to stay up for it. Because I could have kept my mouth shut, not said anything. I'm like, well, there's no one here that, like, she really insulted and just kind of let it slide. But to my core, I was like, that hurt me. And I was like, I can't allow you just to, like, demonize. And I have friends in my neighborhood, and there's good people here. And I was like, you have to leave. I'm sorry. But, you know, having those experiences and being able to realize, you know, it happens everywhere. And just realizing that we have to just stand up and address it.
So another word I would like for you to write down as we go through this is called non-negotiable. This is a word that I use a lot, because this word actually birthed POAC in a way back in 2019. You know, I had to ask myself, what's my non-negotiable for people, for myself, and for those around? What in which when you identify that word in itself as what am I willing to lose? If I stand up for you on behalf of what took place, I might lose this entire room as quote unquote friends, but I'm doing the right thing because I'm standing up for you, because it's a non-negotiable in my book, in your book, as the lady that said to your house, or even your daughter in the classroom. As we work through this thing, I want you to start internalizing and asking yourself, what is my non-negotiable? Maybe you don't even know what it is, but I'll tell you, the moment you identify it, it's a game changer. You know, for instance, my son plays baseball. He's about to go play in college. I played college football. And my non-negotiable, even in college, was I didn't sign a contract scholarship for a coach to degrade me to take the love of the game away. You don't go to work every day to be spoken to. It's not in your contract. That's a non-negotiable. So just think of it from that. What are you willing to? Because sometimes it's not money. Sometimes you gotta walk away from, if that's what it takes.
Before we go on, I do want to take about 3 minutes. It's right at 7 o'clock right now, but within your tables, just talk about what your non-negotiable is and what you want to see, and then we can kind of come back as a group. This is again gonna help you all start forming that community pitch for session 4. But we can talk up here all day. It's what we do. But if you all aren't having the conversations with each other, then we're gonna be at the same place in session 4 that we are right now.
And to that, microaggression, there's nothing micro about any aggression.
Yeah.
Let's keep that in mind too. You know, the term microaggression in itself is kind of a mislabel, because any aggression is not micro, whether it's a slap here or a slur there, that's a macro. Maybe it should be macro aggression. We can just coin it ourselves. But 2, 3 minutes.
I have 3.
3 minutes within your table groups to what Marissa was just asking, and just share to yourself, and then we'll bring it forward to the back of the group. You can do that.
Go on to add. I would having a teeny bit inside. Was coming back. And I had a fun day. So they looked at that.
This work.
Junior. And then meetings where they were in community. My mom, I was, she and my dad was come over here.
We have any remarks about?
No, no.
We do have a theater.
It's very different. I don't want to be ready to.
Reached out to the machines last night. That's not very. But man. It's amazing what we're subject to.
It was Tommy.
Some of them are trying to compare it with some of my others, levels on the other side.
Yeah, about 25 people at the conference lunch.
I'm not trying to.
If I'm working, I want to understand.
About 15 seconds.
15 seconds.
That's okay.
15 seconds.
I know.
So,
Yes. So, does anybody have some conversation pieces that they would like to share with the group?
how did it feel to actually just verbalize what you're thinking? How did it, I mean, think about it from that standpoint.
It's
So-
almost impossible to nail down a non-negotiable because in everyday life, there are those gray areas
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and you try to extend some forgiveness, some grace, if you will. Yeah, for me, I told him I would go back to church. And do it to others as you want them to do unto you. That's kind of my non-negotiable. And if people don't treat me in a manner that I deserve and that I will treat them, it's a walk away situation.
Any other thoughts from your table that stood out from their all's conversation? I saw you all was in some deep conversation.
Yeah,
So anything else stand out you can share?
it just surprises me, we were saying that in Kearney, and I moved here. Long ago, my son went through the school system and all of that, and we lived here for a very long time, we just moved out to a bigger piece of property, I don't know, 20 years ago, but we had lived in Kearney, and I continued to work in Kearney, so it's been my community, if you will. Very involved in the community, but I know there's that old guard here, and you just, if you're, there were a couple of examples that we gave. One, there was a couple, two guys that were great guys. They were accepted because of their situation, because it was an old family. One of them came from one of the original families, so it was okay. There was another young man who his mom was white, his dad was black. If that had been any other kid in this community, he would have been chastised. But because of who his grandfather was and his place in the community, he was openly accepted. He was a great kid, a fantastic athlete, everything good you could say about a young man, you could say about him. But had he not been who he was, he would not have been accepted. And I just, that it just crosses everything, not just that, but things that some people get to do that others don't get to do, concessions that are made for some that aren't made for others. And to me, that was one of the worst things here in this community. But aside from that, I just think the bad thing is this exclusiveness. It's everywhere. It's not just Kearney or Liberty or South Springs, it's everywhere. And I think it just takes everybody to just say, hey, I'm not gonna stand for that, and if somebody does something improper, you speak out, Now, if there's 80 people and you're one, you might wanna
Rethink.
temper your response, but for the most part, I think it has to start with each individual and coming out and saying, I can't tolerate that. Don't talk to that person that way.
And Joanne, what you just said is maybe you're non-negotiable.
Yeah, that is my.
That term is not a really collective term, it's an individual term.
Yeah.
Because what you said, and then was also what you said, maybe how you interpret it is, it's hard to come up with a non-negotiable. It is for the community, but for yourself, I guarantee you can, because you have a moral compass of where it really end of the day boils down to this is right and that's wrong.
We were talking about students too, and for a student to have a non-negotiable, even if that's truly how they feel, there's that fear.
Yeah.
Standing up and
But you all have some leaders in students' body that are willing to stand up and speak
great
out.
kids.
And those students don't look like us. So I'm telling you, you have some trailblazers ready to create change. If people get out of the way and let them create change. You have anything you'd like to share?
Oh, I'm good.
You're good? What about your table, Adam? Anything that stood out that you all want to share?
So it was probably in April sometime. We went to Liberty to pick up groceries at Aldi. So we were sitting there parked for a couple minutes. And someone pulled up next to us in a minivan, probably a Pacific Island or someone of Asian descent. Whatever. I didn't think a lot of it until my daughter said, they don't look like they'd be from Kearney. My daughter's 6, she was 5 at the time. And so I don't, I have lots of negotiables with my 5-year-old kid.
Yeah.
So I told Mrs. Cole she would have been proud of Aaron who she had in school, my son. they had just talked about Martin Luther King Jr. in his class, and he talked to her about that, and we tried to, tell her God made all sorts of types of people, and but on one hand, it just it was a very stark realization for me what even a small child can perceive, and then why is that she would perceive that. So that was eye-opening for me, and that's coming from a household where we give some amount of conscious effort to trying to avoid a mindset like that.
Appreciate you sharing. Any other thoughts from your table? Mayor, your table, anything?
Our non-negotiable is really kind of the same thing, same message, and how I was raised, how my wife and I raised our son is to accept and love everybody. You may not understand, or you may not agree with somebody or who they are or what they are, to just love and respect everybody. And so that's really what we talk about, is just being able to be a champion and spread that love, and if we see it happen, to be brave enough to say that. Yeah, is that it?
No, I mean, it's true. Terry can tell you, we've got a son that he was here, and a lot of the stress that he had about being a little bit different was that he had a perceived persona of how he would be accepted, but he actually wasn't, and that was the conversation that we had to have, that fear is a real thing, and this fear that he had was that he was going to be judged by everybody. And what's really cool that I found in this town was that the real person judging him was him.
Yeah.
That actually we found that a lot of people were very, when they knew what was going on, was very open to it, very loving with him. Now, he still to this day doesn't like to come home because, well, it's Kearney, but he wanted to move away. He's away, but he's still, the problems that we have and things that we got to talk about with kids too, and with people, is what is the perception? Because sometimes they don't match the reality. I mean, he was all worked up and scared and everything, knowing that the world was going to come from there, when reality, nothing really changed. So the thing is how do people treat people? Well, sometimes people feel they're going to get treated a certain way, and they believe that people are treating them that way when they're not. And we found that this community actually was very, non-judgmental and forgetting, whatever. The perceived problems that he thought he was going to have didn't happen, and that's been our thing all along, is you accept people where they are, and that's always something that I thought this community, for the most part, been pretty good about. I do know of one, we have a rental house in our neighborhood. We didn't talk about this, but we have a rental house in our neighborhood that an African-American family came in, moved into. They were here about 2 or 3 months. Oh, I can't live here. I gotta leave. Okay. Well, in fact, they live right next to Eric Marshall. And then another African-American family rented the same house, and I walked the neighborhood and talked to him. He thinks it's a great neighborhood. So, was there an issue with the African-American family before? Because a perceived thing versus a reality thing, where this family, they think it's great. So that's why these things are hard to pinpoint.
It is, when I gave a couple bands away, we use this with the term, we call it learn the 90%. We use that term with the students because when you learn the 90% in schools, it can change the experience for students in schools. Maybe the mantra for what we're trying to do in this journey is learning the 90% could be, you know what, today my goal is to maybe have lunch with someone at work different and learn their background, where you're from, what you like. As I was sharing with this young lady over here, you know, we focus on what we have in common. Jiu-jitsu just took us through a 10-minute conversation before everyone walked in, and he hasn't done it for 30 years, 20 years, however long it's been, right? But I think to what you're saying is that, you know, maybe when you take time, whether it be a rental or a family moving in, is that how can I learn their 90%? How can they learn? You know, it works both ways. So.
And I think that's powerful, it's good advice, you know. But for me, it's easy to say to my son, and you know, love and respect everybody, when like, I don't know the fears and challenges that your son had, I don't know the fears and challenges that my son may have, right? I mean, I don't know, I don't know if they're going through what they're going through.
Yeah.
So,
We see that with students all the time, from some of the activities we do. Would you all like to share your table?
Well, we talked a good bit about some of what I shared already. And then we talked about, we also have a grandson who is Hispanic. And so we talked about when to walk away and when not to, and you know, kind of be comfortable where you are and that sort of thing. And we talked about different ways of doing that. And I think we kind of came up with the same kind of conclusion as what we really just talked about is, you know, you gotta know where you are and kind of know your circle. And, you know, for the one person that, you know, for example, that my wife and I encountered, we have a very loving community surrounded by wonderful, amazing people. And that's why when we sold our home, we remained in Kearney. Because we had the opportunity to move to Liberty, and we remained in Kearney because Kearney's home. And so, you know, we kind of talked about that home is, you know, wherever your heart is. We've heard that all of our life, but home is where you make it too. And well, even though we've encountered some challenging things, and our children, I mean, we raised our children in this district, and some of them encountered some, and still encounter some crazy things because they have two moms.
Right.
But then we have others who do not encounter that because they're like, so who cares?
Yeah.
So some of that is perception.
Right.
Some of that is you just got to watch who you're surrounded by. And just like what Meredith was saying, they encountered with one person. That person did not speak for our community.
Right.
But yet in that moment, they were.
Right.
So,
And to your point, I mean, that's all communities.
yes,
You can take
absolutely.
law enforcement, you can take a bad teacher, you can take a business here in this community where someone had a bad experience at a job. I mean, it's just a microcosm of a situation that unfairly, sometimes you get a broad brush from. We, again, work with enough of your students to realize that, and again, growing up from Plattsburgh, I had a perception of a young kid growing up in the community here myself. But when I started working within the community, I was like, there's a lot of good here. You know, I was conditioned to think that there was no good here. You know, that's not a true statement. There's a lot of positive, good people here.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but the bad stories are what stands out.
Yeah.
We moved during the 70s. My dad was a lawnmower dealer and he was invited to join the KKK.
Yeah.
And he declined. Yeah. But he was still invited.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard those stories.
Crazy.
Yeah. You know, I'm only 20 minutes from y'all to the east, west, whatever it is. Close enough. That question got me right.
Yeah, but this community's came quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's like Meredith said, at one time, you know, we had the KKK here. We had different problems, but it even went down to, I was talking to Randy, we had a divide between Holt and Kearney over a school district boundary, and the Holt kids were looked down upon because they had to come to Kearney. we closed the school and all the kids are here now, they're all the way through. Now, you never hear that. So Kearney's came along, really.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because to me, let's not forget that. For us to be standing in front of you all today, knowing the history of you just shared, that's progress. That's a lot of progress. So, I mean, so you have to recognize the progress that has been. Is there more work to do? Yeah, there's more work to be done. But this is where it starts. Yes.
You know, some of the comments that I read in the survey results, and you can only fit so many on the slide, so I'm not trying to take a shot, but. Oh, this is just trying to stir up something that's not there. That was close.
Yeah.
You got some of that.
Yeah.
So I'm interested, you know, I think my friend's comment about perception, and I think that's part of the challenge here is if I'm your son-in-law, why would I ever come back here? And then another person's like, what are they talking about? And so that's part of what makes this such an uphill deal.
You know,
I think it's being open to, you know, experiences and being open just to hear, because that's what it's about. Like, it's about hearing people's true experiences and realizing that everyone has an experience and validating it and saying, hey, I see you and I accept what happened. Now let's just move forward and let's figure out a path together, right? That's what this is about, because you can't invalidate anyone's experience, right? When we talk about that with students, you know, because some students will say, well, my experience was worse. And I'm like, you can't invalidate someone's experience as worse, right? Because I could have a very traumatic experience and think, well, that wasn't that bad. But they could have felt that so much worse because that's all they experienced, or equal to what my traumatic experience was. So we talk about not equating what someone's experience was, trying to be like, well, is that the same as mine? Well, no, just validate it, say, I hear you. Well, let's go on, let's move, let's make it better, right? That's what we're about.
another word to put on your sheet of paper, legacy. Because we're all gonna leave one day. Our students, our kids, whatnot, will tell our stories. What do you want to be remembered for? You know, as we go through this journey, what's your legacy? You know, I'm not gonna give that definition for yourself, but I want you to think about it through our 4 sessions. What is my legacy gonna be? Just kind of chew on that as we go through. So, go ahead, Chris.
So we have some microaggression solutions here, and it's a lot of what all of you have discussed. You know, we always tout with the students, these are your words, not ours. This came after you all had already said it, so please take some pride in that also, but ask for clarity. You know, what did you mean by that? Asking, we call them curious questions, asking people to elaborate on what their actual intent was with what they said. Speak in the I rather than on behalf of somebody else. I don't agree with that. Instead of approaching a conversation that you witness and say, we don't think that's right, I don't think that's right. And then the person that's the victim in the situation is probably gonna say, I agree with them, and then it becomes we. But speak for yourself and stand in your roots, kind of to what Jamie said about that non-negotiable. If you're gonna say that there are more voices that are on this side, and you're talking about those loud negative voices, then the I's will speak up and it will become we very quickly. Focus on the impact of what's being said rather than the intentions that they had. I don't think that landed the way you meant it. This is a big one that we talk about with students as well, and we call it the story I'm making up in my head. So what you said may have come out that way, but the story I'm making up in my head about what you said is that we're not gonna get along very much longer after this conversation.
I'm not welcomed or whatever. The story I'm making in my head is that I'm not welcome here.
Yeah, the story,
And that plays into like perception, right?
absolutely,
Your mind can play games with you, right?
yeah. And then the last one, it says, take time to educate them and yourself. So educate yourself on the situation. You know, you never know what somebody's, again, what their intent actually is. And it may just simply be because they don't know the 90% of what's going on in the room, in the situation between you and another person, or just here in Kearney in general. Any questions, anything further for that? Because I do have something that's a follow-up. So in the survey results, and I want to laugh with you for a minute because I don't know what's up with the welcome baskets in this town, but I want one. It was about 30 questions that said we didn't get a welcome basket, or I did get a welcome basket when they moved into town, which is awesome. That's very welcome. I would love one. But is that
Address that.
okay? So
It is our local chamber of commerce that does the welcome baskets, not the city of Kearney.
Okay.
And the Chamber of Commerce collects new people that move in from City Hall, get those names when they sign up for water, utilities, etc. And then they take a basket out to them. When I first came to Kearney, my basket had a thing of salt and the lady threw salt over my shoulder. You know, it had coupons in it and everything. We still do similar. We no longer give the thing of salt, but you get coupons for discounts at things around town so that you kind of will make an effort to get out and see our community and try out some things. But that is, and sometimes when they try to do them, no one's ever home, so they don't leave them on the front porch. Everyone does have that
Maybe
option.
it was salt, I hit him in the eye.
So again, the story I'm making up in my head is it Terry? Is that your name? In the back, sir?
I'm there.
Dan, maybe your neighbors that didn't get a welcome basket, that was a bad experience. And I'm not trying to be funny with that, I'm serious, because if you see everyone else getting welcome baskets and that's the story that you see, and then you don't receive one. And especially as an African American, everyone else gets a welcome basket, and I hear my students talking about their families and that they got a welcome basket, but we didn't get one. Red strike on Kearney for me. So again, learning the 90% of different situations, educating yourself, there's a backstory to everything. And it may just be they weren't home and then it just got lost in translation, but you never know. So what is the new resident experience supposed to look like? That's one of the words on your paper there. But if that's supposed to be the experience and somebody misses that experience, what are they supposed to think, right? So again, I am a reflection type of person, and that's why I created this lovely paper for you. But what is the experience supposed to look like beyond the welcome basket? You know, if I walk in with my coupon, is that business supposed to know I'm a new resident to ask those questions? I see you shaking your head. I would
They
assume
do,
so. I would
yes, they
assume
do,
so.
and they usually get, you know. It's that 98%, there's always that 2%, they get someone who's had a bad day at work or something, but. That 98% of the time, it's like, oh gee, you must be a new resident, we're glad you're in here to, you know, check us out. And so for the most part, yes, it's a very positive experience. I can't wait to tell the chamber that they were making a difference. I had no clue.
They got 3 welcome baskets. that
Yeah.
include-
And it's not even on just the negative of I didn't get one, it's on the positive, and then you get.
It's on both sides?
Yeah, it's
Oh,
on
wow.
all the description,
Okay.
so kudos to you
So
all.
see, it's the little things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all in the details, always.
Tell my son all the time, you make some cookies, right? It's all in the details.
Yeah.
Put you my phone.
Yes, it is. It's
Cookies don't
the
sell
tiny
out.
things that make a difference.
So what else would make a new resident experience on this scale? You know, that was the first question on the survey is, what is the experience of new residents? And we had some that had their own personal stories to tell, but then they also told it in the perspective of someone sharing for someone else. So what should it look like?
I think I'm gonna try and be brief. There's a assessment the military created for people that were gonna be on submarines together to test their compatibility. And there's 3 categories, and one of them is inclusion. And then in there, it's how much inclusion you show and how much you desire. And my general theory, being around church my whole life, is most people, you know, that church wasn't friendly or nobody talked to me. I think most people have a high desired score, but a low expressed score.
Correct.
And so I think what makes the difference is somebody having because the reality is, the story I'm telling myself anyway, is that everyone is equally insecure. And so it takes some people to push through I don't want to bother them, or I want to be nosy. Because most people want to be welcomed, relatively few, especially compared to how much we desire it, actually make an effort to show. So that's my running theory of humanity.
100% agree with that.
Yep.
Because I feel like people are so, I'm that way. If someone calls me, I'm like, "Yeah, let's go,"
Right.
but I'm not calling it.
That's right.
I'm just not. doing it.
That's true, Sadie.
But I think it's because we get so comfortable, right?
And it's stepping outside of your own comfort.
And yeah, and we tell that to our students about, when we talk about fixed mindset versus growth mindset and pushing out of your comfort zone, right? That's how a lot of these problems will get fixed, is it starts with you guys as a group and pushing yourself out of that comfort zone. Yeah.
And to add to that, and we always continue to bounce back and forth between students and community. You know, to make change, we tell our students, don't try to make some grandiose gesture. Start with your friend group. We all have about 3 to 4 people we hang out with every weekend. It's the same folks. You start with that group from this takeaway of these conversations and let it filter out, plant the seeds with them. You know, then your friends start realizing, that's different. You have never said that in the past 20 years. And that's where the lesson starts.
I noticed in my friends' circles, a lot of denial.
Yeah.
And I'll hear, oh, I have a best friend who's Black and things like that, and.
I mean, just so you all know, when that comment's ever made, it's not a good thing. So, I just want to put it out there.
Exactly.
Throw the sock, whatever you want to call it. But it's not a good thing when you say, I got a Black friend.
But that's what I hear, and whenever the conversation comes up, and I just want to shake them a little bit, and
I think you can go back to saying you can't invalidate the person you're talking about, experience, right? I have this a lot. I'm very open and loving arms with everyone. You know, to be very transparent, my husband was a legal immigrant, and I've met my husband in high school, and I had to journey that experience with him and seeing what that was like. And it was not easy. And then having my dad was very conservative, and the political climate that it was, and him coming to a very extreme of, well, you know, legals and this and that, and it was very hurtful to me. So like, you realize that your son-in-law that you hold dear to your heart was illegal, right? That's hurtful. And I think if you realize that, you have to backtrack. So you're like, oh, well, they're different. I was like, no, they're not different. They are the same. And you're hurting me by saying that, and you're invalidating his experience, and you're trying to say, well, his experience is okay, and yours is not. Other people's are not. And I was like, you know, educating him about what that even looked like.
Intent versus intent.
Yeah. And even, you know, I also have a nephew that's transgender, and talking to people about like that in the school system, you know, is very difficult for me, because obviously I'm a champion for that for my nephew, and I don't think people understand the impact of that. And you know, I didn't really understand it until seeing it firsthand of what a transgender child goes through. But that child knew since they were little. Like, there's no denying it. And I think people don't understand that. So I think when you hear people with their first experiences of what that looks like, then you realize, oh crap, like this isn't made up. This is like a real experience that or the person was born like this, and you just love them. They would acceptance and love. And that's like my motto to everyone else, is just, I treat people with respect. That's all people want is respect. I give respect, and I respect back because I give it. So.
Any other takeaway? I know we're kind of up against the clock of time. I want to be respectful of y'all leave me. Was there anything else that you had next?
No, I was just going to kind of flow through what the new resident experience looked like, and then also challenge yourself within that. You know, on the back of this, there's also places for other notes, and again, that community pitch that we're going to work on. But what can you do as a community to change that narrative? You know, if you do have 40 out of 173 responses that say it was a negative experience or it wasn't so great, how do we change those to the positive side, right? That's what we're here to do. That's what these meetings are for. So how do you change that? What is something you can do and the community can do that can change that narrative? I am a quick thinker, and immediately I'm thinking, if you have an event in their basket, it says, come to the new resident booth, or come to the booth for locals, and then at that booth, they say, hey, I'm so-and-so, I work here, nice to meet you. Go to this booth and they'll introduce yourself to someone else and kind of send them on like a scavenger hunt to meet people within the community, so they do feel welcomed. But I think that's also a good thing in this session too, because that was one of the questions on the survey also, is what would you like to see?
Yeah.
So,
So as we conclude our sessions with our students, we'll do it the same here. We're a call to action group. You know, we were all about actions, reason why we're here tonight. We'll keep showing up regardless if it's 12 versus 100, it doesn't matter, we're all about action. So, what's one takeaway from tonight? A lot of you all came in not knowing really what to expect. This is new, first time we've done this type of a setting. What's the takeaway as we leave tonight that kind of just resonates and stays with you? Anybody? Like to yes.
I don't know if I'm in the group or not.
You are in the
So one thing, you know, I've been learning a lot lately is that everyone's experience matters, and you know, you can't invalidate someone's experience and everything, and that's, you know, it's powerful, you know.
And you can jot that down. I mean, again, these are for you all to jot things that you hear someone else say that kind of sticks. Jot it down, because again, these are just building blocks.
When you work with the kids, do you ever do learning circles?
We intentionally focus on small groups, very similar to this.
We do 25 or less, and we do small
Break them
groups.
into like groups of 5 to 6 or whatnot.
Are we gonna do that in the future with adults?
Yeah,
Yes,
And are we gonna invite more people in, or?
we always invite everyone to come to the community, so we would love to have more people so we can do that.
Okay,
That's our ultimate goal.
okay.
Are the future ones gonna be also here?
that's a great question for Sheila. Is it? Good answer. We don't know. Maybe. I like this spot. To be honest with you, I kind of like this.
I think it depends on how many RSVPs, so we can know in advance what type of space we need,
Yeah.
but we need community members to give us enough notice to say, hey, we need this type of space.
Yeah.
So the hotel owner tonight donated the space, so we didn't pay for it at all.
You should give him a basket. Just.
I will give it the Chamber of Commerce. One of the Chamber of Commerce interns runs the desk.
And she's a graduate of our proactive leadership.
Yeah.
He is, Mr. Harry Patel, he's on our committee, since what
Yeah.
His Kearney resident.
Yeah.
You know, let me ask you all as a group before we go through more sharing, but is this a good platform where you feel like you can share openly? Because a part of our mission is we want a safe space where you can actually be vulnerable. You can actually go there and thought, you don't know what you don't know, you can still ask it and not feel, you know, a little or whatever. So hopefully this has been a good first step as far as in laying the groundwork for what we hope for, as far as creating a safe environment for us to kind of just go there. So any other takeaways from tonight that stood out that you will kind of leave chewing on a little bit, thinking a little bit about anything else that stood out?
Perception and clarification.
Learn the 90%. We're gonna get y'all some wristbands when you come back. You know, we are here with you guys. We want to be a part of the solutions, reason why we show up. You know, I think collaboration is the key to success. You know, we can't do this on our own. You all can't do it on your own, but together, I think we can do some pretty crazy, cool things. And even if it's setting benchmarks for the community, you know, in 2024, we want to see one step better. That's a huge step. We don't need 10 steps. We just need maybe one. And then, you know, maybe as we work through these sessions of identifying what that one looks like. Then you can work on 2 and 3. Final thoughts?
I think as our community grows, I think one thing we need to remember is we need to continue growing with the community and not stifling it and not going backwards, but continue to move forward, just like our community is moving forward.
Absolutely. And
Well, and you mentioned earlier that the loudness isn't the majority. The community is not the same 2,500 people was 25 years ago when I grew up here, right? I mean, There's more new people to our community than there are the old originals, right? So, the lot of us is in the middle.
Yeah, you know, and I challenge this group that's here tonight. You know, we said a lot of powerful, good things, you know, here. But the challenge is when we walk out that door. What do we do with this knowledge of what we shared tonight? Because you're gonna have those who aren't in this room, pick up the phone and call you, so what are you talking about? You should say you should have been here. No, what are you gonna, I mean, because it's gonna happen, it's gonna come, but that's where the opportunity of growth for yourself is. When you leave out here, you get back to your car, something has to start changing internally to spend the time that we just did here tonight. So just think about that. When people ask, well, what was it like? What did you talk about? Tell them. Nothing to hide. Invite them back for session 2. So I appreciate you guys having the opportunity, the courage just to come out and listen. We're realistic. You know, this is the first step of many hopefully to come. And we're gonna continue to show up as long as you guys show up. And those who are here, we're gonna try to create some cool baskets for everyone.
Yeah.
So.
Nice.
You can stop around. If you all, go ahead.
Yes, this is off the record. The meeting is officially over. I don't know if I can do that.
You just did.
However,